Hello and welcome to Arma 3 mission making in 15 minutes or less, and today we're going to be talking about the modules within Arma 3. You'll find them under the systems menu, and we're going to go through what they're used for, how to use them, and a few of the troubleshooting things that you might need to come across. And then we'll go through again demonstration actually in game itself. Key points to note: I am not going to go through this list exhaustively. There is a whole bunch of stuff down there. Again, as ever, go in, experiment, and you'll learn and find some new things. Of particular note, I am not going to be covering Simplex support services. That is in a completely separate tutorial. So if you're wondering why I'm ignoring such a critical component of the module system, that is the reason why. Instead, we're going to focus on the vanilla ones, the ace ones, and the lambs ones as the ones that I tend to use within Arma 3 itself. One of them, or the first one, I should say, that we're going to talk about that you should be eminently familiar with is the Game Master module. So under Zeus, the first thing you should do whenever you're mission making is put down a guy, give them a variable, and then add Game Master, so that when you get in to do your mission testing, you can test with that person and you can get around the map and do the things you need to do to make sure that everything is working in the way that you want it to be working. So that's the first one that you'll see. And I won't speak anything more of that because it's covered in like a gazillion different tutorials. We go over it. What else can you expect to see though? Well, Ace do a whole bunch of them, and one of the ones that's covered in the briefings ones is the Ace slideshow module. I'm not going to go through how this module works in detail because it's in the slideshow module, the briefings and slideshow module. But essentially in here we have a module that allows us to do a recreation of PowerPoint in Arma 3, because who doesn't love more PowerPoint presentations? That capability is there. Other things that you might be interested in. So here we're using let's zoom back up to the top. Here we're using the integration of a number of different modules to achieve an effect or an outcome. And in this case, we're trying to demonstrate we're going to move these guys closer actually. Move them to like here. We're going to demonstrate a complex ambush using a couple of modules. So we've got one of the 3CB, and this is a JDAM module. And you can see that it is synced to this trigger. This trigger is on essentially as soon as the independent forces are present, it will initiate this module, which is a JDAM, and this module, which is a tracer effect. Module. I've given it a custom target, and this custom target is this little helipad here. So what will happen is the tracers will fire at the custom target, and the JDAM will go off as soon as these guys walk into that area. And we're going to trigger that using a skip waypoint. But that's essentially integrating two different systems, two different modules to demonstrate, in this case, complex ambush. What else have we got that we can see in there? Well, you've seen me use the hide terrain module a lot. So here we've got a hide terrain module, and that essentially, if I snuggle it over here, you can see it's hiding the rocks and the trees so they're not growing through my fob wall. That's one of those ones there. We've got over here, we've got a edit terrain object. So under the environment again, snuggle down here, environment, edit terrain object. Depending on the type of object you place it on, so let's place it on this rock, for example. Depends on what you do. If I go and place it on a wall, and then I want the wall to be broken or hidden, let's go broken. That's the wall that's now broken. Snuggle it over into the building, turns the building into a ruin. Other things that you can do on the building is we can edit the doors. So it's closed, I want this open, I want that one locked. And you can see as we zoom in, there's a door that's open, there's a door that's locked, using that edit terrain object. That's a really useful one to use. What else do I tend to use? Lambs. Love lambs, they're awesome. Let's go down here. Not down there, over here. Here we go. So here we've got a bunch of different lambs modules working in concert with each other to create a strong point around a ammo cache. So we've got garrison, so these guys are going to garrison the buildings. We've got these guys who are going to be on camping around this location, and then we've got this kind of task patrol. So these guys are going to patrol around it. It's all from the danger waypoints. You can use the task hunt, task creep, task rush So let's say just drop this down here. As soon as a playable character walks into this area, these guys, whoever's synced to this task creep, will then start trying to creep up on the enemy. Or if it's a rush, they'll then start trying to rush on the enemy. They won't have perfect knowledge of where the playable character is. They'll just kind of sweep and close in on a particular area. So it means you can run and you can hide, but they will find you eventually. Which makes them for some really interesting gameplay, particularly if you're doing something like an escape and evasion scenario. They will chase you, they'll get on your trail, and they'll follow you. So it kind of gets you moving faster and faster and faster, which is quite good fun. How do we kind of use those ones though? Let's have a drop a couple down here. So we're going to do a task garrison, and you can see here, whoopsie-doopsie, you can see here we've got a couple of identical buildings. Task garrison on this one, and let's do some of the limitations. So sort positions by height. What that means is that guys will go and find the highest position on the buildings that they will garrison, which is great, you would think, on most buildings. But we're going to see here, these guys, instead of going in the cover of the rooms on the second floor, they're going to go onto the roof itself and stand on the roof and garrison up there, which is, you must admit, a bit weird. That demonstrates one of the limitations of these modules. They are clever, but they're not that clever. This one, what we're going to do with this one, we're going to do task CQB. So I'll place this one down here, and let's jump into this one. Scripting tool basically is how they search buildings. Are they going to go through clear it carefully, or are they just going to rush through it? These guys will clear through the building. What the ones adjusted on here? So we talked about that. Teleport units. This is great for at the start of a mission if you don't want to be messing around with A, placing characters if you want them in specific locations, or B, you want some kind of dynamism, but you want them there immediately. Then if you teleport the units, they'll teleport into some random position that they'll occupy within the buildings that are available to them. Those are those two there. What else? How to get them? Well, you've got to sync it. So find your formation, right click on your formation, go to connect, sync to, and sync it to the module. And that is it. That's how that works. And the last one we're going to look at before we actually get in game to see all this stuff in action is going to be the civilian presence module. Now, the civilian presence module is governed by a civilian presence module in the middle, which tells you, let's double click, if you scroll to the bottom, how many civilians you want, whether or not they can use the panic action, so if a contact kicks off, do they run around with their hands over their heads panicking, and whether or not you're using agents. So do you want something with simplified behavior, or do you want something with normal AI? The more civilians you have, the less simplified their behavior, the more frames it's going to eat into, and so it will drain your CPU capacity, I should say, and eat into your frames. So 10 seems to be a good number for me in this kind of area. But you see, civilian presence module itself doesn't do a lot without the support spawn point. So we have a civilian spawn point, and they're going to spawn within this area here. You can see the circle there. There's nothing we need to change on that one. And then they're going to move to these civilian presence positions. So if we double click on that one, you can either have it as cover and a waypoint where they'll move to it, only a waypoint where they just move to it, or only cover where they'll use it as cover if a contact kicks off. You can check use closest building. So let's say you want to use it as cover, and for a bit of realism, you want them to get into this area here where you've got a couple of buildings, but you want them to actually get into the nearest building. So you would have use closest building. What we've also got here is terminal. So once the person walks into here, they'll be deleted, and we'll see another one spawn from the civilian's present spawn point. These three work together. Essentially, you link the spawn points and the positions to the civilian presence module and gives you 10 people in this instance. And you can find all of those in the ambient aspect of civilian presence. That is that one. Let's jump into game and let's see what it looks like. So you can see here our guys have started clearing through this building. And you can see these guys, they're occupying the highest position, so they run on top of the roof, as you do. And the little dynamic patrol that's going to be set up will go around the garrison location, so they'll dynamically patrol within the perimeter of the that you've laid down for the system module. higher number, takes longer to clear through, but you can see they're going to go and clear through that location. Here's our civilian presence. So we've spawned 7 so far. They spawn, they start walking to one of the locations. There's number 8. Oh, things are blowing up on the things are blowing up with the simplex. See if I got drama with simplex. There is a pain in the proverbial. And this one here. So we remember we had an IED. As soon as independents enter into this area here, the IED will go off and some tracer fire will fire. And we're going to initiate that with radio echo. And here we go. They run in. Here's a tracer fire coming from the where the module was, and there's a JDAM that goes off. So just replicating a complex ambush there, a complex IED. Of course, there are IEDs that you can place down in game. They're not 100%, and maybe you don't want them to be detected. Maybe you want somebody just to get blown up because you want to see how they react to being blown up, rather than how they react to being finding an IED. This way, you can put it down, and they're not going to see it. They are going to get blown up and react accordingly. Guys, that is it for systems modules. Today we essentially went through a very quick whistle-stop tour through some of the most common modules that we use. We ignored simplex because that's a separate tutorial. We talked a little bit though about how to set up the LAMS modules and the civilian presence modules, and we looked at a couple of modules that are working in integration with one another to achieve a desired outcome. In this case, it's demonstrating an IED, a complex ambush with an IED, and with some small arms fire supporting, and gives you that fine control over achieving that activity versus doing it in other ways that you can do the same things in Arma 3. Any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. If not, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.